You would love
all
it.
out.
I heard that.
It's all out.
I heard
It's
the
really
first
good.
episode on revisionist history where he interviewed Rick Rubin.
Yes.
Very good.
Oh, but
very
now
good.
the first
Rick
one,
Rubin lost his house.
the one they just did
he
is
lose the
all
studio?
about death metal and
Yeah.
what's the other one?
Norwegian
Although I'll be
metal,
honest
death
with
metal
you,
and-
I don't feel like Malcolm Gladwell is the music guy I would like to hear about music from. I'm not going to lie about that.
I just like to hear him. I think he's got a great voice.
Yeah,
and
I
he's
think
smart
that I agree with that, and I thought the Rick Rubin interview was okay.
Is this the show right
Isn't
now?
Rick Rubin
No, this is a different
his
show.
partner
This is part of Media
doing
Picks.
this?
And as a person who hated Media Picks, I have 3 Media Picks
Oh
this
my
week.
gosh, you're
I have
so-
one in all 3 medias: audio, visual, and
Spiritual.
movie.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's get this started. It's Talking Tesla 139. It's a main show.
Are
and
you
for
sure
all
it's
the people.
139? Because I was listening to this very confusing
Yes.
conversation that
Yes.
Robert had the other day
Yes.
on one of these shows about
Yes.
nomenclature and whether or not
Yes.
nomenclature is the right word. And I know what happened is we put out a show where Robert was like, these are the new naming convention.
Yes.
And then after the fact, I believe Cece was like, oh, we're not doing that.
Cece will do whatever she likes. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to introduce you to the studio audience. We have a number of people here in the studio today that will be helping us with the show.
I thought you were lying about that.
Those are.
That's funny. And we've also got...
Did you actually use that joke again?
Well, he did it off camera, and then he had to do it on
I did it
camera.
off camera
when
and
you
it
do
actually worked.
But when you do it off camera, you're supposed to gauge whether or not it was actually funny
did
to
work.
decide to.
It worked.
It didn't work the second time.
Well,
though,
it didn't
right?
work on you because you were busy futzing with cameras.
We've got the Google Cam. Boom. So the Google Cam.
Google.
Bam. And then we've got a couple other interesting shots. We're going to just be switching all over the place.
Oh, so
We're gonna give
many
you,
switching
Make
machines.
you sick.
I'm very blown
There's
out.
a bunch of.
Oh, look at that one.
Bunch of
nice one.
cameras.
Anyway, let's
That
get
is a nice
started.
I feel high tech.
What is this one here? Supercharger Cinderella. What is that?
Oh, I'm sorry. We shouldn't talk about that. I don't know. I found. Okay, so I was searching Tesla today. I was trying to
Yes.
find some information on the European supercharger.
Yes.
And just randomly that came up. You put that in there just as a placeholder. It really is. It seems like almost like a Tesla staging site.
Hang on,
For
let me just
whatever
pull
reason.
it up. 1 second here.
It's an incompletely coded site. Why they call
to
it
the
Cinderella,
slides.
I don't know the answer. But you can see it's kind of like it's a totally different setup of the Tesla website.
It is
different
on
buttons.
Tesla.com.
Yeah, different all kinds of different information. I just found it today, just very randomly.
did you
It's like
randomly
you
find it?
snuck behind
No
the
idea.
curtain.
And I'll be honest.
Is this for the rollout of V3 of the superchargers?
The
'Cause
Google-
this is all about charging.
The Google found it. It's called Cinderella. I have no idea.
So
My
we're-
guess is it's going to be shut down by the time.
Tesla.com/supercharger/Cinderella for those that are listening and not
Yeah.
watching. It
Yeah.
seems to be this is
They
all about
released it
charging.
by accident.
But then it's like supercharging world map, which you don't see unless
Yeah.
you like in this format. It's
This is
completely
interesting,
different
this
formatting,
map.
right?
Go back down a little bit, Mel, because it shows the completion of the the Trans-Canada Highway.
Oh, it does, yeah.
And that's something that's been talked about quite a bit on the Tesla forums in the last couple
Well,
of
what
months.
have you found here?
I know, right?
This is the most
show
amazing
is
thing.
breaking information.
We can drive all the way to Mexico
Does
City.
it say anything about 250 kilowatts of
But
charging?
look, that's all 3 cars at a charger station. Actually, I'm going to walk over there real quick. Is that Model 3 CCS? Can you see? Is it the
Flip
European
up a little
version?
bit.
Go up a little bit
Little bit
more.
more.
A little more.
Little
Come on,
more.
buddy. No,
No,
the 3.
up.
None of those are the Model
That's an
3.
S.
Yeah,
X.
those are different
There you go,
cars. Yeah,
3.
there you go. Now zoom in.
I don't know how to zoom in. Oh, there I
That
go.
would be the Command Plus button.
No, it looks
I
like
don't
just a
think
standard
so.
one.
No, I think you're right. Yeah.
This is great.
Because that
great
charger would
radio.
have 2. Excuse me. All right. The charger with the Model 3 would have to have the 2 heads.
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
the only way they're doing CCS right now.
There's some close-up photos I found on the web of a red one with the dual, with the CCS and everything. So
Yeah.
they're getting ready to roll out because they're getting ready to roll those bad boys into the Europes. We're going to talk about that.
Well, let's keep
Why
going.
are you
here.
laughing? It's not the Europes?
That's
Is
fascinating.
that wrong?
Hey, first of all, I want to say thanks to the patrons for Patreoning us. We've had a lot more patrons in the last few weeks, and it's really very helpful. Let's keep this going. We want to do great
Yeah.
shows for you, for the patrons, full
Can I make-
shows every other
In
week.
fact, the patrons got the first ever video show just for them. This is the first ever non-patron video show.
This is our second
That is
video.
not live.
We're going to become YouTubers, and the real reason we're doing this is so we can actually get into Tesla events because it turns
Right.
out only YouTubers get into Tesla events.
We have to actually get some people
and then,
watching.
even so, only YouTubers get to go and fully experience the Tesla events, as we will go into ad the nauseum.
Yes.
So why don't we, well, before we get to that, because I want to dive
no,
deep into the boring
deep.
company.
Deep.
Let me just tell you that I got a new X. Well, I didn't, the wife did. And this one doesn't have any Falcon Wing doors, which is
It doesn't have any Falcon Wing doors?
Yeah,
it has some Falcon Wing doors. Maybe they just work. They haven't killed you yet.
So let me tell you how this works.
This is exciting.
Tell us.
I got a call. The lease is up. So here in Los Estados Unidos, leasing is a very common thing. It's not so common in other parts of the world. And it was a 3-year lease, and it was up in 5 months. And I got a call from Tesla a few weeks ago saying, hey, would you like us to forgive the last 5 months of the lease if we can get you into a new one and just start a new lease?
Can I have a question? What, if you don't mind sharing this information,
Yeah.
what did 4 or 5 months of lease payments, what did that take off? How much is it a month? Was it a month?
It's like $1,500 a month.
So that's like,
$7,500.
it's a pretty substantial amount of give back.
It's a lot. And so they said, look, we were trying to do this so that you can get the $7,500 tax credit, so that we can make sure that you get another X, so that we can have a huge fourth quarter and a terrible first quarter. No, I didn't say that, but that's what they did. So they forgave the lease.
We're doing it for ourselves.
So what I got was a 100D. The old one was a 90D. It didn't have folding seats, Tom, the thing that started this whole program.
Wait, the new one doesn't have folding seats?
The new one has folding
Oh, it
seats. The
does.
old one doesn't.
And how are those folding seats?
And they are the most. This is like, you know, how when Apple does something that Android has done for 3 years and pretends that it's incredibly innovative. This is like Tesla saying, and now the seats fold.
What?
Bet you didn't see that coming.
That's amazing.
Innovation.
Can you just give me a quick heads up? Not everybody who watching this or hearing this know what the hell happened 3.5 years ago. How did this actually start?
So this is what happened. 3.5 years ago, Tesla created this very advanced, forward-facing, big wing doors, SUV, 7 seats, everything anybody could ever want.
Yes.
And for whatever stupid-ass reason, they made the second row of seats not fold.
In an SUV.
And we
SUV.
discovered this months before launch. I looked at the photo and was like,
There was a
those
huge
seats do
fight.
not fold.
That was our biggest early fight. It was great because Tom's like, that doesn't fold. I'm like, what are you talking about? Who would be stupid enough to create an
How could it
SUV with
possibly?
And sure enough, it's a monopod, and then I get the car and it doesn't fold.
they
It's
don't
like,
fold.
are you killing me? Anyway, I got a new X.
Okay.
Well, the wife did. 5 months forgiven on the lease. More range by 50 miles. 8 cameras. Folding seats.
Yeah.
And I went and picked it up at Burbank, and the place was packed, full of people everywhere picking up 3s and X's and S's. This year end, get your money before the tax credits finish. Big.
So you drove your X
Yes.
to the pickup,
Yes.
left the X,
Yes.
and got a new X.
Yes.
And how many miles did your old X have on it? Do you remember?
35,000.
35,000. And so
it
now
has a bit
the-
of a ding in the back, and I'm hoping they won't see it.
Oopsie. But
I was going to
now,
ask you about that.
the thing about this is
Bit of ding.
this was one of the first X's.
Yes, it
right?
was one of the first
And so now
2008.
what this means for all of you out there, for all of us in here, is that X's are now going to be used on the Tesla website because the first leases are up. There
yeah.
are dozens of available X's now for
That's
purchase.
cool.
You could buy one, a 90D, available on the 31st, under 30,000 miles, $70,000. You already have one, so you don't need to get another one. But you,
In the
out there,
world?
could get an X. A used X for about half what it would cost you to buy a new
That
one.
is
The
huge.
seats
That is
don't
big.
fold
That
though,
is
so
like-
I don't recommend it.
the bloody seats. So I did all that. It was cool.
them.
It was fun. It was wonderful. It was great. It was. Then when I got home the next day, I got another email from Tesla saying, "Hey, your S lease is up in a year. You need to start thinking about what you're going to do."
Were they going to forgive the whole year?
No, a year. You're
That
going to
would
give
have
me a year.
been amazing.
That would have been cool.
They lease your X and like you get a call like, hey, would you like another one? We're going to forgive all 3 years of the current X lease.
They
That
didn't,
says I can sell 100.
Just rotating through
they
them.
didn't by chance have it set up so that when you arrived at the delivery center to get your new X, that somebody was there waiting for your old X?
No,
No.
it wasn't quite.
No,
like
because it has to go through the Tesla 973,000 point inspection program.
Okay.
that. I had to do my own self-inspection.
Excuse me?
I had to check out my bits.
Did you
of my
find
car.
any? Did you find any?
I
things?
checked.
Any
no.
lumps?
And I had to take a picture of the ding.
You did? You had to?
Had to.
What if you didn't?
they're going to inspect it.
So what does that mean? You had to sort of was there an app, like a turn-in app?
So there's a website, and basically they say take a picture of the front of the car, the side of the car, the inside of the car, tell us how much wear and all this, and you basically do this pre-self-inspection thing.
That's how Turo works.
Yeah.
When you rent a car via Turo, when you pick it up, you take pictures of it. And then when you return it, you take pictures again, and that's how you kind of prove the before and after. Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But this is not a rental car company.
No, it's not. But
This is an expensive car company, and they're getting you to kind of do their work.
I'm going to tell you a couple of other things too.
Please.
So in a year from now, I'm not going to get an S. In a year from now, I'm not going to get a 3.
Because you already have both of those
In a
things.
year from now, when I hand in my lease for my S, what am I getting? I'm getting
Hot
a Y.
air.
I'm getting a Y.
Wait a minute. Who thinks he's full of shit in this room? And this is the best part of this being a video show now, is I can just raise my hand.
I'm getting a Y.
Remember, doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo. I don't even want to drive this big S. I want a Model 3. I don't even like this S. I want a Model 3.
You're not listening. I've said many times on the show, I want a Y.
You also said many times you wanted a 3.
Yeah?
And you didn't drive the 3.
I drive the 3? Can I get to the point?
I don't know. Can you?
I'm going to get a Y because here's what's going to have.
Why?
1, no Falcon wing doors. Please, 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 oh please.
Correct.
2, 400 plus range at the high end. Yeah, you heard it here first. Full autonomy 95% of the time. Thank you very much. It's going to have
like
an amazing
making
crash
things
test
up.
results. Boom. It's going to have a 120 volt outlet for all of those times when you have a car with a giant battery where a 120 volt outlet would be cool. Yeah, you heard it here first. It's going to have air suspension. Thank you very much. And it's going to charge it 2 to 3 times what you can do right now. Thank you very much.
That's possible.
Okay, that's my wish list. Tesla, are you listening?
So this is
when
that's
I bring
a
back
wish
my
list.
S,
This isn't based on any
this
knowledge you
is based
have.
on nothing.
So it's like a typical part of the show.
And if you ask the studio audience, am I right or am I right? This is the kind of response you're going to get.
I think the lion
Thank
has
you.
a question. I don't know if he's pushing the microphone away or if he has his hand up.
And then before we get to the boring country, a couple of other things. First of all, the fart app. Look, the Tesla app has got a lot of things that need to be fixed.
Fart app.
A lot of things need to be fixed. And they go and make a fart app. And they're wasting their time programming and all this stuff until you use it. And then you realize it's so fun to get in the car and do farty noises to the person next to you.
You're right, and you're right. It is a gigantic waste of time. It's a fart app, and why? I have a 16-year-old.
Yes.
He gets in the car occasionally. I drive him to the school.
Yes.
I turn it on.
Yes.
I set it up to be on his seat because you can put it on either one of the 4 seats because it's got the stereo universal sound. So the fart app so when you push the button on your steering wheel, depending on what seat you set the whoopee cushion visualization up for, that's where the noise comes from.
So
It's
I'm
as
sorry.
if
So it can
somebody
either
in the
fart
back-
out of the driver's seat
Well,
or
of
the
course.
passenger seat.
Well, that you don't even have to set up.
Well, I mean, that's been set up for me.
Which car are you talking about?
So the Model 3.
The Model S. It's
Your
just a
Model
software-
S has this?
Yeah, it's a software update. You'll
I
get
It's
did
in
not
the
know this.
it's in the cowbell section with the.
No,
with the
I
so
don't
they
have it.
updated
I
it.
just
It
got
has
it a couple of
the
days ago.
fireplace.
I
They
have it.
added the pole position video game.
That's only on the 3, I hear.
It's horrible.
But you can
by the
plug
way.
They got
in-
Atari. They
You
got-
can
You can use the steering wheel.
You can plug in a USB controller.
Yeah, but it's a driving game.
You can use the steering wheel of the car to do the driving game.
They took pole position.
Can we finish the show? I wanna go.
A perfectly good game. All the billboards that you can crash into in pole position are now Tesla billboards. So they reprogrammed it. The car is no longer an open wheel Indy car type car. It's a
model.
Tesla.
Yeah, okay.
I believe it's a Model 3. It's hard to tell from the back. But the controls are, it's like, no, the car's off when you're playing, so there's no power steering. The thing is impossible.
Oh, so your car, your actual Model 3,
actual
when
wheel
you're trying to use it, is too difficult to use to control.
Difficult to control,
so
in my
now we don't have
opinion.
to finish the show because I thought it
Yeah.
was going to be
So,
cool.
but you can plug in USB controllers.
That's what I hear. Yeah.
And do it the old-fashioned way.
You cannot play any games without them. Like you cannot play the Asteroids without a USB controller. It's impossible.
I wonder when they're
see
going to
it's
start
hard.
selling
I tried
Tesla
it.
USB controllers.
Well, I mean, you can go to Best Buy.
One
and
other
get
thing before we get to the boring company, last thing I just want you to know you know that I'm 5 foot. I used to be 5'9". I'm 5'8" now, and this guy's like 6'4", 6'5". This is my real height after I get off these things that I'm standing on.
Somebody sent us a
there
mail
you go.
asking why Mel was recording in a hole.
I'm like you're a baby, and I'm going to get back up,
You
and I'm going to
are-
get even taller
You
ones
are a baby.
next time.
That's
Yeah.
It's upsetting. So we went to the Boring Company event. We got the call. we went down. I went with Tom. We were driving down the road. It's terrible
right.
traffic, and there's all of this like consternation because we're going to find out how he's going to fix traffic while sitting in traffic. Robert's already there. This is the best part of the story. 2 hours of traffic. I don't know, it's an hour and a half. It's terrible.
It's a lot.
And we
lot
get
of
there,
traffic.
and the first thing that happens is that Robert comes around the corner and hands me a Shardy. It was the greatest
It was.
thing that's ever happened to me, actually. It was beautiful. So then we get there, and there's lots of things to see, and there's you got your Shardies, you got your sliders, you got your vegan sausages.
The
we had
food
one.
was great.
Great food.
What was it? The name of the chicken place?
So they had Howling Rays.
Howling
So
Rays.
basically,
I
it should have
overdosed.
been a subtitled "The Boring Company Ironic Event," because it was basically it's an event built on a platform made to stop people from waiting for things, waiting for traffic,
Yes.
waiting to
Yes.
go anywhere. Right?
Yes.
Howling Rays is at this moment the longest line for food in Los Angeles. Howling Rays. So you
It's
will go there.
chicken with a spicy, crunchy, fried
Yeah.
covering. And it was quite good. They served it with a coleslaw, with pickles, and they made sandwiches, and they had it just sitting out in trays. And I think I ate maybe 8 or 9 of
They
them.
had the tenders with the spiciness. They had the French fries, which Mel loves.
Never
the
ate.
French fries. They had the sandwich.
Yeah.
Had all that stuff. But if you go to Howling Rays, you will wait about half as long as we waited for the event to unfold in all of its terribleness.
And what about at Pink's?
And
the
then
hot
Pink's
dog?
was the other thing there.
How
also
big is
one
the
of the
line?
longest lines
Yeah,
in
so
Los
Pink's
Angeles.
hot dog, they serve it out of this little place on Fairfax, is it?
That's correct, and Melrose.
And it's
But don't
had
go there
lines
because-
for 40 years,
Yeah, forever.
forever.
I grew up in that neighborhood.
Good hot dogs. I had 2 of those as
So
well.
good. Chili dog.
With chili.
Yeah.
The food was great.
I had the vegan hot dog.
The food
Delicious.
was great. Long, no lines for the food, lines for all the other things, and in a very non-Disneyland kind of way, you could wait in line for 3 hours to say take an X ride in a tunnel and not get on the ride.
1 second. So let me set that up.
Oh, please.
So
It took us 4 hours to get to that point.
We're cruising around and we're eating the shutties and stuff, and then
Right.
the realization occurs: there's a hole down there that can't hold all of these people up here, and
Yeah.
that's where Elon's going to do his little talky talk. When I realized
Why?
that, I thought I'm not staying, because I also realized it's going to take hours and hours and hours to get on the little tram bus ride that they'd set up. So I said, I'm out. I'm out.
That was
Hour
it.
and a half in, Uber
Yeah.
back.
Uber
hour and a half,
Back home was fine, like 25 minutes.
and then
back.
you turned on the stream.
I watched the stream all the way home, and I thought those guys are going to be at that event for hours. So how long were you at the event?
4 hours. I left, I
Only
believe,
4?
around midnight.
Yeah. Yeah, more at
So
least.
tell us, you didn't even get to go. The whole point was that there's an X in there in the hole, and you get to drive in the X in
Yeah.
the thing.
So-
and you waited,
so-
and you didn't even do that.
So when they initially announced the Boring Company, the Boring Tunnel, the Boring Situation, the Boring whatever the hell they decided to make into underground, right? It was supposed to be sleds, and then they've
Yes.
been like, "Oh, we're going to make these pods, and 15 people are going to be in the pods." And then we show up, and it's a hole where like you have to drill a hole, you have to dig a hole, and then you lower your machine into the hole, and then the machine goes forward. Otherwise, you can't get your machine into the digging.
Yeah, right.
It's just physics.
okay.
So they have the event, and everybody's like, "Oh, he's going to talk in the hole," and they wouldn't let anybody in there for the first 2 hours we were there, and then right about 9 o'clock he was supposed to go on. I think it was 9.
It's supposed to be 8.
It's supposed to be 8, but I think
About 8. That was
so
the
and
quote.
maybe the timing's right. So I'm like, oh, it's 7:30. I'm gonna go get a drink for all of us. I'm gonna get a Chardonnay.
Thank
You
you.
wanted a tequila.
Right.
Sean
Oh, I forgot
wanted
that.
a mojito. I was gonna have a club soda because I was the designated driving individual. And so I get to I'm waiting in line, and there's lovely people. We're talking, and we're excited. It's going, and I get to the end, and you're the bartender, and I get right there, and they're like,
Oh, right.
"It's closed."
Right.
And I said, excuse me? Oh,
You
they're
were
like,
waiting?
Elon's going to talk now, and so we're going to close the bar.
For an hour.
And I was like, that's really awesome. What you guys should have done is put somebody behind the last person you were going to serve so I wouldn't be completely freaking irate at you right now.
Or put a notice up so that you didn't wait in line for half an hour.
Any kind of information.
Can I just make a
Who
comment?
does this?
Can I make a comment?
Yes. Oh, please.
So there are people who you can hire that actually produce events.
They're called event planners.
They're wonderful
I know
people.
some.
They make wonderful events.
In fact, I am one.
A lot of fun. And they were a lot of fun. This event was run by a bunch of very nice, lovely, but very harried engineers. Not hairy. Harried. Like they were going off the rails because things were changing, things weren't working, stuff wasn't happening. And, all I have to say is that, maybe they should hire some event planners.
Tom could run the events for them, and we could get for free.
What they should do is focus on things that matter. Like if you're going to invite
Hire
1,000
Tom.
people,
Hire
if you're going to
Tom.
invite 1,000 people to be in your thing, make sure that the capacity of your thing can hold 1,000 people in the time frame you're going to have.
But you're speaking
That's
like an event planner.
Okay, don't spend all of your time on a tower and some knights that want to come and beat the living crap out of each other.
I sent that to
You
you.
showed me a great video.
So all of a sudden we're waiting in the line, and I'm bouncing around. Elon comes out and he does his little song and dance and his dog and pony show, and you can see it on their Boring Company
Didn't you
website.
get down into the hole?
Yeah, I got into the hole.
He got into the hole.
Still couldn't, because at one point they just started letting people down and checking badges. I could see no indicator on anybody's badges that was any different than the badge that I had. They were letting gray badges
There's
down. They were letting
gray
blue badges
and
down.
blue.
So I was like, well, I'm going. And I went. And I got down there, and it was all the funny, the YouTubers, the fabulous, the glitterati, the Teslarati. All of the folks were in the hole.
Yes.
And then we waited. And we waited. And we waited. And finally, headlights come out from the hole, and it's in a Model X, and Elon gets out of it. And everybody's like, oh. And then he awkwardly spends 20 minutes giving a presentation about things that we've changed the tunnel, we've added these wheels and not the shuttles and not the things and the whole, it's all changed now.
Well,
and then you waited 3 more hours
and
to
then
not
he
get on
ended,
it?
and I got really close to him. I got within this far as he was.
Did you?
As he was leaving,
him?
I didn't touch him. But I got very close to him, and some guy right next to me was like, "I made the comic book thing that
Eli.
yeah." And Elon was like,
Tesla
"Cool,"
Adventure.
and he just kept walking, and he left, and he was gone.
He didn't say
and then he went and stood in front of the tower, the Monty Python stupidity that he's created on top of it.
Come on, that is not stupid.
It's great.
That's
the
awesome.
one good thing. But please tell me, answer the question. You waited down there for a ride and
No, I
never
waited.
got
Okay,
one?
so then we got out of the pit, right? And then we got in the other line, and I had the badge, the blue badge, which was an indicator. If you had a blue badge, you were guaranteed a ride. You didn't even need
No, it was the
a
gray
token.
badge.
No.
Here, let me show
Opposite.
this. Let me
Opposite.
show
So
this,
here's
what
the
this is.
token.
Micah, go to...
Oh, you had the blue.
I
have
had
the
this
you
one
have
down
a-
here.
I have the blue.
You have a
too.
blue badge
And
also?
now-
No, you had a gray badge.
See
No.
this thing?
I had the badge that was guaranteed the ride, but
Okay,
that,
so anyways, I had the blue guaranteed badge
at
and the
this.
token, neither of which worked to get an actual ride because I don't have 10 million YouTube subscribers. So if you go, the funny thing about all this is if you go online, you go to YouTube, CNN, any of that, you do any report, glowing, amazing, boring company, we got a ride. Everybody who was anybody got a ride. Anybody who was nobody did not get a ride. Thank you very much for really showing your elitistness. But I would like to thank Sean Mitchell, a
Joni
lovely
Mitchell's brother.
YouTuber individual. His referral system has now gotten me into this event, got me into the semi/roadster event. So I would like to thank him by giving everybody his referral code, which is Sean510. He is like halfway to the roadster. We're not anywhere near halfway to the roadster. So
I just got a referral.
use Sean's code. You did?
My ex go there. Tell us, mate, let's go back to this thing.
Okay.
Let's go back to this. So you got this, Tom, because you were with Sean and you got this special thing. What is this special thing, Robert?
So they were handing these things out when you were first checking in. I didn't get one, but I got the blue badge, which I didn't realize was supposed to get me into the tunnel as well.
Spatial.
And these things are a really there's an interesting story behind these. In fact, they even had a bunch of people, like these tags were up near the opening of the tunnel that they were made actually out of brass and they looked real. And so these things are called
real.
colliery tokens.
Colliery tokens.
Colliery refers to a coal mine. And or they're also known as lamp checks. And so when you would get to work as a coal miner, you would take your particular colliery token that you were handed when you were employed, and you would give this to the man who had, I imagine they were all men, but let's say there was a woman, who would hand you your headlamp.
The person.
The person. You would hand this to the person who had the headlamps, and they would take it, and they'd put it up on a board, on a nail, and you'd take your headlamp, you'd go down in the coal mine, and you'd do your work. And then at the end of the day, when you come out of the coal mine, you would hand them back your headlamp, and they would give you your colliery token. And that way, if the mine collapsed or there was a fire or some disaster, they knew exactly who was in the mine. And I thought it ironic that they gave us these to go in the tunnel. Not that we were expecting to die in the tunnel.
I mean, it was a very ironic event.
But that it was a hold it back to the coal mining days of, like, you can go to the Wales museum.wales.
W-A-L-E-S, not W-H-A-L-E-S.
Correct. Wales as in that little bump on the side of England.
As it being Welsh.
That is full of really cool castles.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. And you wanted to tell us, somebody wants to tell us about floor mats, which is very exciting.
Well, are we done with this? Because that's really about
I
Model
hope so.
3
Well,
modifications.
actually, we didn't actually talk about what we think about. So the tunnels, he said they're going to be able to do them at $10 million a mile instead of $1 billion a mile. They're much smaller. They're going to use electricity, only electric cars. It doesn't have to be a Tesla. You put this modification of these little wheels that will come out, whoop, so that you stay on the track. You'll do 110 miles an hour. The rides that people were having were not very smooth, because he said we need to get a better pavor, but it'll be silky smooth one day. So having thought about all of this stuff, do you think this is going to, 1, happen, 2, be successful in mass transport? Go. Discuss.
Define mass.
I'm sad. I'm sad.
You're sad? You don't
Yeah,
think
because I sat there and it took a long time to get nowhere for us. And in that time I sat and I thought a lot. And I thought, how many people could fit in an individual vehicle? Let's say a car or even a minibus.
The Model X, they were putting 5 people and the driver. It was not autonomous.
And so, you know, I was thinking about, like, if you lined them up, like, let's say this was like the 405 and they're like bumper to bumper, how many people would move in that 1 mile of track? And I know they're going to make them longer, but you don't get that many cars in a mile, and you're separating the people a lot. I think about a New York subway car where there's people sitting and a lot of people standing, and they pack those cars at a busy time. So a subway car seems like it might be the better type of transport, even though this runs a lot faster. But the choke points are getting in and getting out.
Right.
And then this car is running on wheels, right? Once in a while, a wheel gets a flat tire.
That's correct.
And what if, like, one of the cars that's in the tunnel didn't operate well, like something fell off of it? I mean, I don't know. Teslas are pretty darn reliable cars, but I don't know about other electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Somebody else's electric vehicle, I don't know, their bumper falls off because somebody rear-ended them 20 minutes ago, but they're rushing to get to work. Now you got a bumper sitting in the tunnel. The tunnel is stopped. The only way I see this working is if you have, like, under the 405, like 40, 50, 100 tunnels.
Yeah.
And you can get cars in and out of them with those elevators a lot quicker than the elevator that I watched in the videos in looking at this event.
Yeah.
And so there are some limitations, and we are not past them. I do invite an additional route of getting people in and around. And I don't know how we're going to do it if we're all doing it in our cars.
Yeah, I don't understand it. They've gone a kind of many different iterations of this, right? They went from the sleds. They're building one right now to Dodger Stadium from East LA that's supposedly going to use pods and will be able to transport 1,400 people per game, which doesn't seem like a whole lot of people. That's like a 3 mile. I think it's a 3-mile tunnel or something like that.
1/28.
So again, I don't know. The idea of even. So he talked about multiple tunnels off of each other, where you have one main tunnel, 150 miles an hour, and you can scoot off of it to the 60 mile an hour, and obviously all of it would be done robotically and autonomously, and so the throughput could be higher in that situation. But then he's talking about you need 16 tunnels in a square, and so now you're talking about a lot longer, a lot more drilling, a lot more per mile. So let's say you have 16 tunnels. And you have a mile of tunnels, and it's $10 million per tunnel. Now you're talking $160 million a mile. Still cheaper. The table's moving. Sorry about that.
It's not locked.
Still a lot cheaper than $1 billion.
Right.
But it's still not moving people, in my opinion, as efficiently. You're not using all 16 of the tunnels. You're using some of the tunnels as like, off-put, on-put, output tunnels. So again, I don't know. We talked to a lovely engineer whose name we will not use to sort of protect her, and I don't know if some of the information she was giving us was correct or not correct. But she talked about it as like that last mile option, right? Where it's you take these tunnels to get to a subway hub, which if you're using your own vehicle as of right now will not work because. So she mentioned the Red Line. Let's talk about the Red Line specifically. It's in Los Angeles. Goes from North Hollywood underground to Universal, which is another main station, and then it terminates at the Union Station.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
If you were to take your car from where I live and get into one of these tunnels.
Yes.
And then you'd get to Universal to get to the main subway line.
Yes.
That's great. Where are you going to leave your car? There's
autonomous.
no place to park. It's autonomous, but it's still what's going to go home?
Yeah.
In the tunnel?
It'll go, on another tunnel, it'll go somewhere else. It'll go park somewhere else.
That seems like a very inefficient use of things.
It does.
Because I'm not putting my car in the tunnel system, but if they're going to have just their vehicles or they're going to have 20 or 30 person pods, then I could see if they reimagine it, I could see it working. At this point, I think it's an early proof of concept. What he's trying to figure out right now, more so than anything, is can I drill tunnels cheaper?
Yes.
And that's it. The rest of the stuff he should. Like all of the stuff, he should stop because he hasn't figured it out yet.
It's clear to me that that's exactly right. They're making this up as they go along, but it's really about how low you can get the cost of the tunnel.
Yeah.
But I was thinking like pods for Amazon, same thing that we talk about for Hyperloop. Put a pod in there, fire it at 200 miles an hour. If it crashes, okay, I don't get my iPhone. But I don't necessarily want to be in a X doing 125 miles an hour behind your X, behind that X, behind that X, when there's a crashy crash.
But I wouldn't mind being in a 500-mile trip to San Francisco much quicker in my car, right? And then you get to the end and you have your vehicle on both sides, right? Like that seems like it makes sense. Again, I don't think it reduces. It's not fixing LA's traffic. Like imagine how much throughput you would have to have in this tunnel system to just fix what happens on the 10 freeway.
He said in his presentation that with multiple tunnels, you can basically have every car in America in the LA area and move very quickly. But that's all
at what cost?
I don't know, and that's all theoretical. Ben Sullins on Teslanomics went through some of the numbers. He's a data guy and basically said if we believe everything they said, they might be able to get close to what you can do sort of on a 4 or 6 lane freeway. But it's all up in the air. We don't know.
Yeah.
But there's something there. If they can get the price of those tunnels down, then there is something there. I would pay a fairly substantial premium, and this is the problem, because this is what always happens. If you have cash and they build a tunnel, say, from downtown to Disneyland or downtown, I will pay that. But that doesn't help the person who can't afford $1 bus ride.
Right. It's sort of an elitist strategy, and I understand, and there have been some public transportation experts, can I say, who have gone back and forth with Elon on the Twitter.
On the fightings.
And they said, you're crazy, and he said, you're other bad things. And bottom line is I understand what they're saying, and that is, this is not necessarily the big solution that we all need, but it is maybe the solution for what Elon needs. And if Elon's willing to pay $25 to go from his home like at Sunset and the 405 down to Hawthorne one way, And maybe a few thousand people a day from his neighborhood are willing to do that. Would it be wrong to get them off of my freeway so that I can get through a little easier? And then they pay for this system, and then eventually that system can grow and become more public available.
But the real long-term energy solution is the most efficient movement of the most amount of people for the least amount of energy, and that happens in a public transportation environment. And when you only, and I heard this quote recently, and I can't remember where it was. It was in, I think, the podcast of the last media pick. If you only have a public transportation system for the poor, what you have is a poor public transportation system.
Right.
And that's not, and we already have that.
Right.
We're doing that well.
Yeah, we're doing that very well.
So LA is a great place to trial this out. Again, if this is a big experiment, it does seem to be. We have terrible public transport.
Yeah.
The cost of doing tunnels is ridiculous. The cost of adding freeways is impossible. To do double-decker freeways is like $1 billion a mile.
Well, the bigger issue...
This could be part of the solution.
Right. It could be part of the solution. And again, the drilling could work. The biggest difficulty, and maybe the thing that is overlooked, it was talked about a little bit, isn't necessarily that you can't build more freeway capacity because it's very disruptive to neighborhoods, typically disruptive to lower income neighborhoods, because naturally that's, who gets displaced when you do these things. If you can build another 10-lane freeway under the 405, right? So let's say you drill the tunnel, and it's just, you drill it, and you build them so close together, it becomes one giant thing. So you're building another 405 freeway. You can do that underground. You can do it a lot cheaper. You don't disrupt neighborhoods. You don't cut things in half. Then you have some potential benefits. Again, it's a proof of concept is, can he drill much, much cheaper? Can he make this happen? And then let's figure out what's the best use for that new drilling technology.
Yeah.
As long as I get to use it when the traffic's
bad.
That's all that matters.
But that's the problem, man, because again, it does feel at the moment like an elite sort of thing.
It does. We'll see where it goes. Lots of people have been, like me, both on the one hand, boy, I hope this works because this is part of that science fiction future that could be great. But on the other hand, there's a lot of practical issues for them to work out, and they're clearly working them out as they go.
Yeah.
So I want to go to show floor mats because somebody wants to show us these floor mats. Please tell me why.
Okay, so again, this is just Model 3s they're ramping up. That production keeps coming and coming and coming. They're going to Europe. I have added a few things lately to my car. I was looking for the WeatherTech floor mats. They're not made yet for the Model 3. So I bought these floor mats from Tough Pro on Amazon. I bought them. They were not given to me. I'm just letting you know I really like those particular floor mats. There is a link. They look kind of high-tech. They have little hexagon sort of shapes in them, or octagon, or whatever the freaking six-sided. It's a hexagon shape. It's a hexagon shape in the floor. They're very, very nice. I also wrapped that center console. So the center console in the Model 3 is that very high ticket, glossy black stuff.
Is it in here? Is there a link?
There is a link to it, right?
Here we go.
And so, again, we don't get any money. This is currently out of stock on Amazon. I bought this stuff, and basically it's a matte black overlay and my Model 3 scratched to hell already, and they've already replaced it because it was scratched to hell. So this, I'm hoping, will keep it looking a little bit better. So far, so good. I'll throw up some photos as well.
We're going to have pre and post.
Pre and post.
Okay.
And it looks pretty good. So, and that's it. So those are two things you could do to your Model 3. I think they're pretty cool.
Let's talk about the stock price. First of all, we have to ask Alexa. Here we go.
That's not Alexa.
Google. Hey, Google, what's Tesla's stock price today?
Tesla is trading at $315.49 per share in after-hours trading, down 0.2% from closing.
Now, it's high back in the day. Let's ask Google. Google, hey, Google, what was Tesla's highest stock price in the last 12 months?
Sorry, I can't help with that yet.
Why not? You're not very smart, AI. Please. So I think they got as high as about 390 and as low as 250. We're back to about 310. The stock market has been crashing in the last, actually it's been doing up and down, but it's gone down a lot. But it's held up pretty well compared to a lot of other stocks, for example. It's so good, in fact, that this analyst, this is from Teslarati, we love those guys, that saying that Dan Ives, that he believes that Model 3 demand is going to be really strong for at least another year, especially because of what's happening in Europe and China, where they're starting to take orders now. They probably won't need to raise money, and he expects, I don't know where he got this, at least 3,000 Model 3s a week in Europe and Asia. And I say...
So that's 60% of what they think their current... what we think their current production is, right? We think they're making around 5,000 a week. They have claimed that they can push that to 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if they've actually done that yet. We'll find out very shortly, I'm assuming, in the earnings call. So 60% of the current Fremont production, if these numbers are correct, will be getting pushed out to Europe and Asia.
Yeah, so
Easy.
will they add 3,000 a week to what they're already doing, or is the American sort of demand going to start going down a little bit?
Well, they claim that they've been able to satisfy all of the U.S. orders.
They've done 400,000 of those puppies already?
No, but see, that was a global order number, right? That wasn't a U.S. order number. That was the global reservation number.
Okay. So, and I think it's a lot better than this because I just want to throw this in here now because I've already said I'm getting a Model Y. This is for a car that everybody else is not making anymore. This is a small sedan, which Ford and GM and all these people say, we just can't sell them.
In the States.
In the States.
In the States.
So when they get the Y, which is the SUV, which is the car that everybody wants right now.
Why?
Because it's good. They are going to sell 10,000 of these a month. I think the demand for the Y is going to be 2 or 3 times that
In
of
the States?
In the States. So they'll be able to make... They could sell 10,000 of these a week for years.
They're going to need another
I think they're going to be
factory.
fine. They are. It's going to have to be at the Gigafactory,
Well,
which
we
is
don't know.
always
Or
perpetually
we don't know.
30% done. When are they going to get to 40%?
Well, because when they
50%?
get to 40%, they just decide to make the whole
Whole thing
project bigger.
bigger.
And
That's
then it's
30% again.
At one point, it'll be 82% of Nevada will be just a giga.
And
it'll be
still
Giga Nevada.
30% done.
Welcome to Gigarino.
Yeah.
And that's all I have to say about that. But who wants to talk about Berlin Norland?
Okay, so now we hear that the Model 3 is about to hit Europe.
Yes.
Did you mean Bjorn Nyland?
Yes, that guy. Bernard
Yeah,
Norland.
I mean, this is why YouTubers hate us. I don't know, or why people hate us in
us.
general.
Just people.
Yeah,
Just
in
people.
general.
It's
So-
just sort of like when I go to a party, I have to explain the odd uncle.
Yeah. No one was shocked when you left, by the way. Actually, people were more shocked that you were there
I
than
know.
that you left.
I'd made a terrible mistake.
What do we say to him? I mean, he's such an odd uncle.
Yeah, he likes to show up and be like, oh, he's the cool one, but he's not. So anyways, so the Model 3 is going to hit Europe. I was curious, what does it cost to supercharge in Europe? And I was unable to find that information because whenever there is a European supercharger site, but when you go to it and you're not in the Europes,
yeah.
it just redirects you back to the States because it's like, why do you want European supercharger? Which is how I found the Cinderella site,
Right?
Because I was
So
just
interesting.
looking for information. So I searched and I saw that Bjorn had done a YouTube video on this very, very thing about taking a trip from Spain to Norway or Norway to Spain or whatever. Anyways, it was around 8,000 miles. So currently the cost of supercharging in the EU is about 20 cents per kilowatt hour,
So it's 26
which
cents
works
here.
out to be about 3.4, but it's 26 cents, but this is euros, so it's different.
Yeah, that's right. It's
Right?
euros. Yeah,
There's
go
a
on.
different kind of thing.
There's
So it
a
works out to be
conversion.
about 3.4 cents a kilometer. Now, if you were to drive a BMW, 8.5 liters of gas in the BMW that he was discussing, and I didn't write down what it was, and I apologize for that, takes about 100 kilometers. You get 8 liters per 100 kilometers. At 1.5 euros per liter, you're looking at about 12.8 cents a kilometer to put gasoline in a vehicle. So that's a pretty substantial,
It's a huge
quarter.
differential.
substantial difference. So in 8,000 miles of driving, kilometers of driving, it was 1,024 euros for the fuel, as opposed to supercharging would have been 272. So like 25%
Yeah.
of the cost. Even at 20 euros per kilowatt hour. So again, it's about 20 euros per kilowatt. It does vary, and he mentioned that like some places it's 26, some places it's a little less than that. But basically, the costs are about what they are here, and that's with them starting to roll out all the superchargers in Europe are going to have to all be that new CCS kind of
combo.
format or whatever. So they're either going to give you an adapter, but we've seen photos, early images of the CCS in the Tesla Model 3.
And that price doesn't take into consideration the possibility of staying in a hotel overnight and then
Correct.
using a destination charger,
Right.
which here in the States, you're typically not charged for. So you could get
Right.
an entire fill-up for free.
Or using one of our referral codes like Laney9300 potentially when you buy your Model 3 and getting 9 months of free supercharging and doing all of your long trips. But so I drove...
There's a catch to that, but we'll talk about that.
There is a bit of a catch to that for sure. But I've driven about 13,000 miles this year. I've spent about $30 in supercharging.
Wow.
So, you know.
That is a good number.
Because I charge at home.
You charge at home, yeah. Yeah, destination charges, I don't know how they work in Europe, but here in the States mostly...
They work the same way. You drive and you plug your car in. It's a very, very
but
standard
no,
type of a
that's-
situation.
But they don't charge here.
But I don't think they charge for destination chargers there either.
I don't know.
I think it just depends on
Can we
the-
just settle on one fact? They
What's
do
the fact?
charge your
They
car.
do charge, but they don't
They
charge.
charge your car,
But they don't
may
charge.
not charge your wallet. It's very confusing
So
to
I got to
keep
tell you,
track of all
can
the
I say this
terminology.
again?
Mhm,
My son's
please.
up in Santa Cruz, so I go up there a lot.
He's right there.
Well, he's switching right now. I go up there a lot, and I stay in a little hotel because it has a destination charger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I've stayed there probably 6 times, probably 10 nights, probably $150 a night or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. I've paid for those 2 Tesla superchargers, destination chargers myself. So, is this thing on? People who have places to sleep called hotels, you should put in an EV charger because
Yeah.
you're going to get the money back very quickly. Thank
And
you
let
very
us
much.
know, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
No, we won't. We won't.
Okay.
No, I mean, like there's 2 hotels that are in...
And I found this
Oh, my.
recently, and it's a new thing. I don't know.
Interruptions
It
are
was at a charger. Sorry.
That's okay.
But it's this thing called EV Match. Again, I have
Here,
not
let
looked
me show
into it,
it
but I
on the
thought
thing.
it was pretty interesting.
What is this?
You can basically put your home charger on their network, and if say I have a charger and I've put it on there, it's sort of like plug share, except for you can get paid if somebody uses your home charger. So, for instance, you have a charger here.
We cannot
If you
endorse
wanted to
them in any way.
We don't. I'm not endorsing them. I'm just letting you know. If anybody out there has used it, please feel free to let us know what you think about it.
Shouldn't we be
If you
charging
have
for
one
that
on-
kind of
Is
sponsorship?
a
We
great
could've-
idea. It's a free.
Well, that's
it's a
what
free one. But
plug share
I think that
is.
is a great idea. I would be happy to let people charge from my charger and give me a couple of bucks
Right,
for
pay
it.
for your
Help
for your
charge
power.
for it. Yeah, that
Why
is
not?
genius.
You're using it during the day. You get rid of some of your extra
Excess
protons
electrons
and stuff like
neutrons. I'm
What are
pretty sure. Neutrons.
that. Some of the neutrons. And I
Electrons.
apologize for interrupting you, Robert.
Please, go
do
on.
very
I was
much
just
so.
saying that there's a couple of up in Cambria, California. There's a couple of hotels that I've
Yeah.
been to. Beautiful place.
God's waiting room.
Only place that I go are these 2 hotels because they have destination chargers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I just don't know why there is not more of them everywhere.
So you seek them out.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's do this one, which is Teslarati talking about. This is a funny story.
This has to have been a Robert
This is
story.
a funny story. No, this is mine.
Oh,
So
really?
if we go to
Robert was working.
the web there. So this is from Teslarati, and they note, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that Tesla drivers get a lot of speeding tickets. 75% of the people in this article who are from which country?
The Netherlands.
The Netherlands, wherever that is.
Is that isn't that Dutch?
Oh my! let's not
Dutch Republic?
Let's not start this again.
Denmark?
I
we
believe
may
it's
have-
Switzerland. Thank you.
Holland?
Hello.
I'm not getting
Holland?
into it.
75% of Tesla owners have had speeding tickets, whereas only 25% of ICE car owners.
This is an amazing number. 75% of
75%.
9,000 Tesla drivers in the Netherlands have gotten a speeding ticket. Now, do you think that police officers in the Netherlands just hate Teslas and are looking
like,
for them?
Oh, there's a Tesla. Stop him.
or what this article kind of gets at is that it's really easy to drive very fast in your Tesla. How many times, Robert, this is going to be a weird question for you because you probably never do this on accident, but how many times have you looked down at your speedometer and went, holy crap, I'm going fast?
I
Yeah.
bet.
I set mine at 72 in full autopilot navigate mode.
Okay.
And I'm pretty much just cruising all the time.
So you set it at 72 on the LA freeways, and what lane do you drive in? Just
Number
out
two,
of-
2 lane, number 2
Okay,
lane.
Interesting.
That's
think
pretty
that's
much.
too slow?
I have to be
Tom?
like 80 or people lose their minds.
If you're in the fast lane, you better be doing 80.
Yeah, no, I'm. There are times during the day when people are doing crazy things, and I
Yeah.
have to say the 101 freeway here by this studio, there are some
Yeah, that's my
effed
stretch.
up drivers.
Unbelievable.
Crazy effed
Yeah.
up drivers.
I got more to this article because as it
Tell
went
us,
on,
Mel. Tell us.
wait for it. Austria. G'day, mate.
No, that's Australia.
Oh, my bad.
Austria is a European country, buddy.
Okay, near
in the Alps.
Yeah,
on
in
the east
Alps,
side.
it's
Yeah.
cold. Schwarzenegger.
It's just cold.
Kangaroos. Right?
No, that's Australia. That's your home country, Betty.
Okay. Anyway,
kangaroos and
so
all
they're
that.
doing this thing here, which I thought was great. You're talking about speeds and how fast you're
Yes.
allowed to drive. They have got it so that if you're driving an electric car, you can drive at 80 miles an hour, and if you have an ICE car, you're only allowed to drive at 60 miles an hour.
Weird.
I thought that is a really interesting concept.
It
Another
seems
way
weird.
to push people into electric cars, give them extra benefits, not just cash.
I like that.
It seems
I like it a
unsafe.
lot.
I like that
It
a
seems
lot.
unsafe to have a bunch of people driving 20 miles an hour
Zoom,
faster
zoom,
than
zoom.
everybody else.
I like that.
I know you do.
I
you like that a lot.
I
Huh?
like that a lot. I could crank it up to 92 miles an
Bet
hour
you could.
if I had that kind of whatever gumption.
Gumption. I like
So let's
that.
move on. Tesla's getting ICE. This was very
This
disturbing
is,
to me.
This is sad.
But
This
again-
is a weird article, right? Because it comes from the dailymail.uk, but
Right.
it's about American
because they're pointing, they're
truckers.
poking fun at Americans. Like we're
Okay.
a bunch of hicks.
It sort of goes like this, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Let me just pull it up for a second. You know, I've
Was
worked
that
out.
thought mode, Tom?
I've realised that I need my notes, but then I can't show
I
you the
remember
website.
this story because this is where Leilani Munter lives. She's our hippie vegan chick with a race car.
Uh-huh.
A friend of Tesla. She's done a lot of promotion for Tesla, and she actually does drive NASCAR. She's badass. But to every one of her races, she drives her Tesla, and she has carbon offsets for every race that she rides. And she lives in North Carolina. And there were 3 big trucks that parked at a Tesla supercharger and blocked everyone. I think they actually took up more than 3 spaces. And then there were a couple of incidents, or at least one, where people in big trucks were screaming at people driving Teslas, using the F word, and being really inappropriate. And yes, it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad, especially because, you know, the people who are driving those trucks, if they have any interest in procreating and having children, their children are maybe not going to eat very well like they're eating, because by the time they grow to be their age, they're going to be in a really, really effed up world. And this is like kind of the interesting concept around climate change. The folks who are alive right now aren't taking it serious because they're not suffering from it.
Yeah.
But their kids and their grandkids and their great-grandkids will. And there was actually an amazing speech. I don't know if you guys saw this. I'm going off topic. At the in Poland at the climate change meeting, there was a girl. I think she's Swedish. Maybe I'm going to butcher
She's
this.
from the Netherlands.
Okay, so she's Dutch, and she gave a
Just
speech.
made both of those things up.
She gave a speech that
great
was
speech.
just hands down amazing. You got to look this up. It's on YouTube, where she just laid into all these dudes, and they pretty much were all dudes who were like 50, 60 years old, making decisions for the future, saying to them, hey, you're making a decision about my world, and my world is going to be messed up, and you got to change now. And I thought that was great.
She was Swedish.
She
what I
did a
thought.
fantastic job. Look, this problem of icing every now and again occurs because people don't realize it's a Tesla charger. Sometimes this was the people going out of their way to being not very nice. I don't get this because I sort of want to
Douchebag.
grab these people and say, this is an American car company
Right.
with American workers making American dollars, American taxes that are going into this. What are you doing? But
Yeah.
there is this meme out there that somehow Tesla is a bad company because it has been taking tax credits. And so you hear this on a sort of right-wing radio all the time. Oh, Tesla is just sucking off the government teat kind of thing. But it takes way less tax credits and gets much less support than the fossil fuel industry. So these people are unfortunate because they don't have the right information. This company is helping you, is helping this country. You should be nice. And when they come out with their fully electric truck, you're going to want one.
Unfortunately, it's
Yeah.
not helping in some ways because it's not driving American car companies to really take electric cars as seriously as they could. It
They
seems
are.
like all of the interesting stuff coming out in electric cars coming out from Volkswagen. There's some stuff happening in China, a lot of EVs happening.
Right.
There's some truck companies that are coming out that actually came out. We're going to talk about that in a little while. But again, in my opinion, this whole thing, this story, what's happening with these people is so much more about how people think it's just okay to not be civil anymore, like with one another, right? We live in this increasingly crowded world, and we're trying to just do our thing, bring people together and not focus on stuff like this. So again, doing this on purpose is not funny. Stories like this only show the rest of the world that the U.S. leadership is experiencing a downturn. This is a down time for U.S. leadership in the world, and that's what you're showing the rest of the world by parking your trucks in these things and having UK newspapers make fun of us. You're showing that people here are idiots.
So what I wanted to finish with this is because if you look at the message boards, there's these Tesla owners saying, I can't wait for that to happen to me because guess who's going to have their tires slashed?
Oh, don't do that.
So I say exactly that.
Dumb.
Actually, let's not do that. Let's do the opposite of that. It's easy for your reptilian brain in that circumstance, and I would be furious. I would be absolutely furious.
Yeah.
But for beforehand, this is probably just an edge case. I hope this stops happening. To just sort of go up to these people and try and engage in the discussion and say, why are you so angry about this? Is it because you think we're elitist, or is it because of fossil fuels, or what is it? I'm sorry, I'm a nice person. I'm just trying to drive a car that's American built and is good for the environment. Is that so bad? Let's have a discussion.
And this article, it's hard to tell. In one of the photos, obviously, there were cars purely, for sure, parked in the spots. In a couple of the other photographs, there were cars parked across them. Maybe that was a 2-minute thing and somebody happened to take a picture. It's really hard to know the background behind the story. It felt like there was some information. So this is what I would say. Get an extension cord. Keep it in your car.
For a Tesla supercharger?
For a Tesla, I don't know. Do something. Figure something out. Or just call the police.
Right.
So that's the
other good point.
Take the higher ground. And it sucks because it's going to delay you because, again, you're probably getting to the supercharger. Maybe you need to charge. You can't get someone else. Hopefully there's another destination charger. Hopefully PlugShare has something close by that you can go and get something to get you to the next supercharger. Don't slash people's tires. Don't dent their cars. Don't stoop to their level.
Don't do it.
No, don't.
Do the right thing.
It will be bad.
You're doing the right thing.
So there is a number of states and a number of districts and a number of cities that have passed laws to make this illegal.
We should list this.
So I can tell you the states, Arizona, California, Florida, Hawaii, Illinois, Massachusetts, Oregon, Rhode Island, and Washington, including cities like Washington, D.C., Seattle, Baltimore, Raleigh, North Carolina, and Knoxville, Tennessee, have all passed these. You're going to see more of this, not necessarily because of people specifically doing this, but just to give sort of people I think, I did it by mistake. I wasn't thinking. No, you can't do that.
3 points.
Okay.
One, a lot of people say, you can't tow a car if there isn't a sign that says it's going to be towed. But if you spend too much time in like a government parking lot and such, they'll tow you. They'll tow you. That not necessarily signs up. And if these laws exist, then please, if you're in one of these areas, then exercise your citizen's right to get that car moved out of the way for all of us. Two, what was I going to say? These poor folks in North Carolina, or was it South Carolina? Don't want to lambaste anybody, but they may understand that, Teslas are potentially going to be the next big employer in their region. When GM is pulling out of a half a dozen or a handful of car plants, then Tesla might be taking one of them over, and that might be who helps to employ your brother-in-law or you or someone down the road and make your environment, your community that much better. And the last I checked was that Tesla's 60% of everything in a Tesla is made in North America. Between Mexico, U.S., and Canada, 60%. I don't think any American car company on any American car can say that.
Yeah, the people who would do this have been told a story which isn't true. That doesn't mean it's not a powerful story to them, but it's hard to think, how do you tell them the right story? Because they're not listening to Talking Tesla, let me tell you that.
Yeah, and we even see it in different ways where even like mall owners that put superchargers in have to leave the spots not necessarily purely for Tesla, right? So that happens where there's an ICE car in that spot because it can be in that spot. Doesn't mean it should be in that spot, but people take that. People will take any opportunity to find a parking spot.
Yes,
have some courtesy.
Again,
I think you made the point somewhere where it's like it's the same situation. If I were to drive to an Exxon station and I needed to run in and get something out of the store, and I decided to park my Tesla in front of the gas pump and there were 20 people waiting, sure, it's my prerogative. It's maybe more convenient or whatever. But why would I do that to someone?
Or at a Costco where you can't find a regular parking spot, just park your EV at the gas pump. I think that you probably get your tire slashed.
We just have to start to treat each other better. That's all. That's all it takes.
Let's talk about
we be friends?
Exactly.
Why can't
this Chinese company called the Great Wall Motor Company, and they've just come out with a little tiny car that is under $10,000. It's a little EV under $10,000.
With incentives.
With incentives. It's got a 33 kilowatt hour battery pack. It has a range of about 194 miles, although I think the real world mileage is about 150. And I was like this, I brought this one up because I wonder, is there a place for a 150 mile really cheap electric car in the States? We kind of have
unbelievably ugly.
Of course there's a place for it.
It's very ugly. I don't like the look of it.
It looks like a Cars car.
It looks like
from the cartoon from Pixar.
Yeah, it does, but not cute at all. So where is that place?
Are you telling me that now, or even 2 years ago, if they would have been able to deliver a car in the States 150 miles for under $10,000 after incentives, they would have sold all of them?
My
as
first
many
Leaf
as
had
they
60
possibly
or
could?
70 miles. Yeah, you're right. I would have jumped at this a few
And
years
what was
ago.
the Leaf? 30,
This was
35, 38,000
This is
dollars?
exponentially larger than the
Oh my
Leaf.
God, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The Volt, the
That's
Volt.
how spoiled I've become since Tesla came around. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's only 150. Why not 300?
It looks like an EV version of the Mini.
Let me
Like
pull it
because
up
of
so
all the
we can show
blue.
you.
Now
It's
the
got all
people
the
that
blue
designed
on
the
it.
Mini are now very angry at you
Look
because
at
it's
this
not anywhere near
beautiful
as
car.
cute as the Mini.
Yeah, but I mean like size and feel wise, it's got the feeling of a Mini.
Pull it up, Mike.
Put it up. Come on.
What's going on back there?
There it is.
Go up a little higher on that article so we can see the triple of There's 3 pictures together. Those
That's
are the
not
ones.
higher.
That-
That's lower.
It's lower.
There you
There
go.
we go.
Well, I'm on a Mac, so I have to push up.
Zoom in that a little.
Zoom in. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, so I think it reminds me of a Mini. It's a very minimalistic interior, but you know, if Grandma wants an EV and all she does is drive from her, retirement community to Ralph's, and then meets the girls for a little mahjong at the Starbucks, and then goes to the outlet mall, and then goes home. I mean, like she could do all that on one charge.
This is a car. If this car was safe, like safety, like a Tesla, and I don't know, I'm not saying that it isn't, but if this car was safe, 200-mile range vehicle, 150-mile range vehicle for your teenager for under $10,000, again, they would sell all of them.
That's true. That's another great use case you have there, Tom. Look at you being with the smarts and the thinkings. Look at you. Let's move on. Let's talk about autonomous driving.
Oh.
There is a Wired article here that says we have now moved from the it could happen, it maybe in the future it's science fiction to we're at the inevitable phase, that mass self-driving throughout the world, at least in the West, is here. We've already actually got in Phoenix, I didn't realize this, that people are actually paying now for robot rides.
This just started. So Waymo, who we talked to a gentleman from Waymo when we went to a launch up in Vandenberg, and he gave us all the kind of inside information. This is the Google autonomous division. They are in effect in Phoenix with the free autonomous, not the free, but the autonomous riding. Phoenix is an amazing use case for this because it's very hot there. They have,
just to be more specific, Chandler, Arizona, which is sort of southeast Phoenix.
And they do it there. A lot of the autonomous driving people start there because they've got wide roads, very well lit, so it's sort of perfect for autonomous vehicles.
Very few pedestrians in the summer, right? There's nobody out walking around.
No, it's too hot to go outside, you die.
So there's nobody to kill. And if they're already on the road, they're dead, so it doesn't matter if you hit them. Because they're dead from the heat.
Okay.
Yeah. So they say in this article that this is a $7 trillion a year industry.
Well, what are they saying there? Are they talking about transportation?
Transportation in general. I think like you put in taxis and Uber and cars and
right. But so are you taking people out of public transportation and making that more complicated, more expensive? Like I don't know what the long-term implications of something like this are. I know that it's happening. It's happening.
It's one of those things like it's going to happen. It is happening. I think there's lots of opportunity, as they say in here. The optimist will see this sort of utopian city, and the pessimist is going to go, the other problems that are going to create are enormous.
I want to ask Google a question.
Go.
Hey, Google, How many Americans ride public transportation?
On the website apta.com, they say, public transportation is a $68 billion industry that employs more than 420,000 people. More than 7,700 organizations provide public transportation in the United States. 45% of Americans have no access to public transportation.
So when you talk about that 45%, again, these are the rural Americans that we have forgotten, or if they think that we have forgotten about them because our politics for the last 20 years
they're going to take autonomous vehicles.
Potentially, yeah, if they're going to. But the problem is, right, is this going to be financially viable even in rural areas? Why is there not public transportation in rural areas right now? It's not financially viable. That's the
because
real
you have to
reason.
pay people to do the driving. But
True.
if like 10-year-old Jimmy wants to go to town to be with his friends from the farm, which is 20 miles out, Jimmy can call up a car. There's nobody going to molest Jimmy in the car because there's nobody in the car. And Jimmy can go down to the city. I'm just thinking about this because I've spent time in Fresno and around Fresno. I mean, it's like, it is a long way to get places.
It is,
And if you're at all impaired, like not just alcohol, but I mean, like you can't see well, you've got a bum leg, you've got a kid who doesn't drive. I mean, all those people can be mobilized. How good would that be for economy?
Oh, yeah.
Like the stores, the restaurants, etc.
I just had another thought.
Oh,
Let's say that I lived in one of those communities, rural Australia, middle of nowhere, an hour from the closest hospital.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the EMS services. You know, right now when you have an EMS service, you have to have two people.
Right.
One driving and one working in the back. If you had an autonomous vehicle, you could have twice as many EMS vehicles because you could be working on the patient and the car drives you to the hospital.
That's half as many, twice as much patients.
Twice as much.
Yeah, I like
you have two paramedics and they don't, because one of them is supposed to be a glorified driver.
Not on site. They're not. But once they get in the vehicle,
to do the driving.
Yeah, no, but a lot of the times one of them is a paramedic. In fact, this is pretty much the standard, and the other is a EMT who isn't able to give drugs and many things. I mean, they can do some basic stuff like lifting power, but hey, what if you had more autonomous like gurneys that can help extract people?
Yeah, I mean, I
from
think
places?
anything that can help people, as many people as possible, and not leave people behind, right? That's what we have to be really wary of, all of this, coming into the cities. And it's going to be like what's happening in the coal business, right? You're going to have a lot of people who are truck drivers, who are taxi drivers, are going to not have those jobs anymore. And we have to figure out now, thinking about that now, what are we going to do about those
universal basic income? Let's not talk about that on the show. It's too deep.
So are we going to make a plea to like Google to invite us out to Chandler, Arizona for a day or two so we can ride around in these autonomous cars?
That's going to work. Yeah. Let's talk about Apple.
Plea.
I sort of forgot that Apple was doing the autonomous driving thing. And then I found this article from thestreet.com and it says Apple is in this big time. Ready for some numbers? Let me give you some numbers.
Very secretive.
70 test cars are on the road. And we know all this because there was some lawsuit and all of this information had to be disclosed.
Correct. This is Titan.
Project Titan. They have 70 test cars on the road, which is a lot more than a lot of other better-known autonomous vehicle people.
Not Tesla.
Not Tesla. They have 5,000 people working on this project. 5,000. 2,700 are considered core employees. This is a big project. And this is a direct quote. There are different directions Apple could go with this. It's already approached or been approached and by BMW, by Daimler, by Mercedes-Benz. Ultimately, it landed a partnership with Volkswagen involving its T6 transport vans. I don't know what they are.
Oh, yeah. That's like the bus.
Oh. Apple is retrofitting these vehicles and wants to use them around its campus as a shuttle. So what is the big play here for Apple? Are they just going to create the technology and sell it? Or are they going to create cars or vans? Like, how is Apple? Where are they going?
I don't see Apple making hardware. I see Apple is more and more, and we're going to learn more about that when as we move farther into the next iteration of Apple. They're a services company. Most of their revenue is going to come from services. So is that going to be software as a service? Is that going to be selling the best software to GM to have GM not have to build its own thing? Although, GM is working, to build its own autonomous. It's hard to say. I think it just depends on, again, who gets there first, who makes the best system, right? Is Apple's system going to be completely integrated? If it's integrated into Apple Maps, we know they've had some issues with Apple Maps in the past. But if the whole system, wouldn't you rather get into a car and know that all of the software, the entertainment, the music,
works,
the guidance, all that stuff was
Seamless.
basically one company instead of them having to integrate 6 or 7 different software platforms, which never works very well into a thing. So that's where, in a lot of ways, the car of the future, which will hopefully be an entertainment, more of an entertainment venue in a lot of ways, a more relaxation situation. You can get in it, take a lay down, listen to something on Apple Music, watch a video, have a conference call through Apple FaceTime. All of that integration, I think Apple is very well capable of being able to do that.
Let's have a look at the van. Here it is.
There's the T6
Boom.
transportation van. We're
Can
going to
see
try
that?
the Mevo up close. Look at that.
Mevoing.
So it's like a little minivan / cargo van. Not quite as cool as the 60s Safari vans, but Volkswagen is working on trying to do some cool electric vehicle situations.
I'm going to do the next thing here, which is about batteries, and it's about the virtual power plant. So we take a look at the website.
This is your home country, Melvis.
This is my people. So Tesla's been, they did the big installation in South Australia, and then they're doing this thing which they're calling sort of a virtual power plant, which is the first one they put 100 power walls into 100 homes plus solar. And then second stage is getting done now. It's 1,000 homes with solar and power walls.
Yeah.
And then the third stage is going to be 50,000 homes with power walls.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're putting these in at a much reduced price. They're just trying to decide if they're going to pay for it. But supposedly this is really going to help stabilize the grid even more.
Well,
rather than having a big installation, you have it distributed throughout the community.
Yeah, the 50,000 home thing had to do with an Australian paying for a $628 million sort of program. That's what they're waiting for approval. There was some elections in Australia, democratic country as it were, and the new government they had some problems with that. They didn't like the idea of doing that, so they were trying to make some change. So now there's 2 plans, which is great because 2 is always better than 1. That's a thing.
Okay.
So they're going to do Tesla Energy to provide 50,000 homes with solar and a 13.5 kilowatt hour battery, costing $628 million. And then the other plan, and that will go to low income folks. And then the other plan would be 40,000 homes with subsidies. So this could be, at the end of the day, 90,000 homes with each of them with a power wall. That's a very big system that is over 250 megawatts distributed throughout the country, and that, again, would keep them from having to build peaker plants, additional gas plants, all kinds of new things. I don't know what it costs to build one of those plants. I don't know if it's $628 million, American dollars,
Probably
800
more.
million Australian. I don't know. But so far, because they've been doing this plan, they've attracted 3 home battery companies to start producing this stuff, and, competition, always good, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I told you last week that I got the email from Tesla saying their power walls are coming. And then Josh, who works with me, he got the email as well. February 11th, he's getting his installed. So they've obviously caught up enough with production that they're
Interesting.
they're
I wonder if
coming.
the Model 3 European deliveries will start to impact that.
Well, it's a different battery, right? It's a different battery chemistry.
right?
But are they using
But they're
a
saying
capacity?
But
there's
it's the lines, right? We talked.
well, no, it's
lithium?
like if you have one line, that's the line. It's a
Right.
Powerwall
but we
battery
don't know
or
how
it's a car
the
battery.
lines have been sort of, if they were pushing all the lines to do the Tesla Model 3
You know,
batteries.
they've came out and they've said that they added 2 more lines. I think that I can't quote because I don't remember the details, but they're pretty set on where they're going. And in fact, they said they're going to be delivering Model 3s by the end of February to those who bought them initially in Europe. So 3s that means they got to get on a boat soon.
Right, yeah.
Which means that they got to be pumping them out pretty soon. I don't know.
And are they still having to do a little bit of final assembly to sort of avoid some tariffs?
Yeah, they keep the battery pack separate from the car and they go to the Netherlands. And there they marry the two.
Austria.
And not in Australia. The Netherlands, which is probably Holland.
So let's talk about the solar roof. Let's
North
move on.
or south.
The solar roof, just a quick one here. Tesla Solar, I missed this, the last quarter was profitable. as were its two biggest competitors. And the solar roof is starting to be produced in volume. So 2019, we might actually start to see these, which is 2 years late for me. I actually am on the Tesla website. I have a reservation for a solar roof. I don't need it.
How's
anymore.
it going? Oh, so you're not, now you're out.
I'm out because I've already built the roof and I'm not waiting 2 years.
And you didn't have to put a deposit or anything on that.
I don't remember. Correct? That is a good question. Maybe I do.
So much money.
Mobile charging. So there's a really great little article here. Let me pull it up. And where is it? Mobile charging. So I like this little story. It's another one of these little stories.
It's an electric.
So basically what you have here is a 360 kilowatt battery that they have some cords coming out of that you can charge electric vehicles with. 2 AC and 2 DC.
That's correct. So 2 cords out, 2 plugs in.
And they can charge as fast as 100 kilowatts, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
It's not quite supercharger, but it's good. And they say these are easily deployable. You can hook them up to the grid. And I think this is a fantastic idea, especially for those situations where, one, there's no infrastructure there. Let's say you're going to Coachella and you want to drive your car down there. You could deploy a bunch of these. Let's say, I don't know, it's Thanksgiving in America and you know that there's a couple of superchargers, they're going to get killed. You could bring out your Tesla branded ones of these and hook them up to a solar panels or something like that, and you could have extra capacity, and when you didn't need any more, you just put them on the truck, the electric truck, and you put them somewhere else.
Or you could just build your current supercharger situation where you already, like you don't need this capacity year round, or maybe you need to follow the capacity up the coast or whatever. You could just plug them into your infrastructure in your 40 stall supercharger, and now you have a 60 stall supercharger because you brought 5 of them in, and you can have that many more cars and get people through using the existing infrastructure that you currently have. Yes, Robert?
2 things. One, they only go up to 100 kilowatts, so you can't charge any faster.
That's
and we're okay with 100, but in another year or two, we may not be okay with 100. Right. And number 2 is they don't exist yet.
What?
These are all just flim-flam, smoke and mirrors pictures.
They're pretty pictures, though.
Yeah.
They fooled me. I thought they'd actually built them.
They don't exist. No, Mel.
But
this is a thing.
I think it's a great idea
that they're working on
for Tesla to do. There's actually a San Diego company, and I can't remember the name of it, that does these rapidly deployable EV chargers, and they'll basically bring on the back of a truck
with solar
array plus battery, and you can sort of deploy them and have electric cars. But they're expensive. I looked at them. 50, 60 grand.
Yeah.
For
right,
these
but if you're Tesla, like you said, and you're going to have a battery factory pumping out a lot of batteries, and you're going to make power packs and mega packs, and you're going to have electric semi trucks, so you can move a lot of these bad boys around, and you also happen to make solar panels.
And you've got some dude on a podcast named Mel Herbert complaining incessantly about 1 or 2 superchargers. You can move those bad boys over.
Right, but imagine a situation like during the holiday season where they sort of like they know there's more traffic going north to south at the beginning of the season. And so they put the 5 superchargers on a semi. They pull up to a thing. They're fully charged, but they can plug them in and keep them charged, so you have more capacity. And then at the end, they drive them 500 miles north for your trip back. So again, you can use your data to put them in the exact position that they need to be put in when they need to be put in.
What about if the Tesla Semi just follows me around with my own supercharger the whole time whenever I need it?
That's a subscription service available to you for $10,000 a month.
Yes.
Could get that done.
Elon will get that to you.
Let's talk about supercharging in Europe before we have Robert give us an update.
Supercharging in Europe.
This is from Electric! And it says there's going to be a dramatic increase in superchargers within cities. And they have this nice little thing here. And he says that throughout Europe, they're going to extend the supercharger network so that basically 95 to 100% of people have access to a supercharger, which usually means like within 30 minutes or 30 miles away. And the problem, though, is that he has said things like how many Tesla superchargers there were going to be by the end of 2018, and they have not achieved that.
They're a little shy.
They are a little shy. And just here, there was supposed to be one in Calabasas. There was supposed to be one in Santa Cruz. There was supposed to be one in San Rafael. These are places that I drive up and down the coast. Those 3 don't exist, and they were supposed to be by the end of the year. He's got a couple of days. Maybe they'll build them really quickly.
TikTok.
So in Europe, they're trying to expand it very fast. They're supposed to be expanding here very quickly. Electric wonders that maybe the reason that they've sort of slowed down a little bit deployment of superchargers in recent months, maybe because rather than build the old type of supercharger, they're trying to finalize Supercharger 3 and deploy those so they don't have to retrofit. It's a theory.
Right, but there's the retrofit theory, like there's the European, the CCS standard that they just sort of, not just, but that they're starting to kind of retrofit all of their current superchargers. So they've been busy because they had to get up to the standard for the European supercharger. So they were supposed to, at this point, have 18,000 superchargers. They're just under 11,900, which is, again, it's less by
it's a lot less,
40% less than they wanted to be. So it's a goal not met, but they have 11,852 more superchargers than any other company making fast charging promises for a vehicle specific, right? That's part of the verticality that Tesla is working on.
That's right. Now I have a picture here to start off the sort of supercharger.
Meet Phono. So that's the 40 staller, correct?
Yeah, that's at Buttonwillow. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Kettleman City. And that is full. That supercharger is full with... And I got this tweet right around, I guess, 4 days ago from Ben McTosh on Twitter. And he said there were 9 cars waiting. And then I texted him back and I said, well, what was the charge rate? And he says, I didn't stop. I didn't wait. I don't care. I left.
I kept moving. Yeah. I went to that just after it first opened. I did a little video there.
It's on the website, isn't it?
Yeah. And you look, when I was there, I'm like, this is ridiculous. There's never going to need this much capacity. And boom.
Yeah.
And that was when?
A year ago?
But I don't know, like the charge capacity thing, it's not necessarily site necessary or capacity necessary, because I go to the Santa Clarita supercharger very late on Sunday occasionally where there's 1 or 2 cars in a 20 stall, 15 stall kind of situation. It never gets past 60 kilowatt hours. Never.
Yeah, and this is my beef about supercharging.
But it's still 450 miles per hour at 60 kilowatts.
Yeah, in a 3, it's great. But the supercharging, like they're saying, we're going to double the speed.
Yeah.
If we just got 120 kilowatts when we were supposed to, that would be great. So I'm hoping version 3 is going to fix this. But please tell us that there are 1 million more superchargers coming. Make me feel better.
1 million, Robert? He
Come
wants
on,
1
million. Give it to me. What do you got? Don't hold back.
900,999. 900 and
just tell me how many.
86 short of that.
That's 24.
That's sorry. 86 would be 14, wouldn't it? Yeah. So we have 14 new superchargers. In the United States of America, we have 14 new superchargers.
This is in the last 2 weeks?
Open?
In the last 2 weeks, open. 14. Nice. That's not bad.
Good. That's good.
There's 3 in Australia.
Yes.
3 in Germany.
Yes.
1 in China. 1 in New Zealand.
Yes.
And I let Cece know, and she said, thanks, but Dad's car is in Australia.
Okay.
Canada got 2. Norway got 1. And Japan got 1. So that's a total of 2, 4, 6, and 6. That means 26 new chargers.
Where were the ones in the States?
The ones in the States are places like Walker, Michigan, Macon, Georgia, Cincinnati, Ohio, San Jose, California.
Yay.
They need a lot there. That's a 24 stall. Westminster, California, which is like Long Beach. 24 stalls. Lincoln, Nebraska. Don't think that one's going to see a whole lot of activity.
I bet you the Nebraskans are going to step up big time.
Yes.
Go from Nebraska to the Dakotas.
Philadelphia, Riviera Beach, Florida, and Jacksonville, Florida. Mm-hmm. That one, they just got one like a couple months ago. Waterbury, Haymarket, Virginia, and Richmond, Texas.
So have you ever read anything about, I've never found anything on it, how they decide where they're going to put these? There's obviously big data, and they've obviously looked at it. They don't just randomly do it. But have you read anybody ask them the question, like, how do you decide?
Because it has to do with where they're selling or delivering cars. So they want these superchargers concentrate around those. Plus, they want to make passageways. So they want to cover the U.S. Interstate 10, U.S. Interstate 90 doesn't get as much activity. They want the 5 going up and down the West Coast and the 95 on the East Coast. So they're trying to link major metropolitan centers and put chargers around where the cars are being delivered.
So there is an article on Inside EVs where it talks about cost, talks about real estate requirements, talks about a commitment. Just very quickly, Tesla requires 200 to 600 square feet for the supercharger and related equipment itself, and also 4 or 5 spaces, depending, right? Most agreements involve 4 dedicated stations designed that only Tesla owners can use them. Tesla does look for existing power connections nearby when possible and requires a site to be lit properly. Landowners have to sign up for at least 5 years. After all, Tesla has to make sure they recoup their value. Many agreements are up for 10 years, so we could be getting to a point where we start to see whether or not those are getting renewed into the future. I can't imagine that they weren't. The property owner gets the high-profile status, draws the supercharger, fans into the situation, and Tesla gets to use their locations. It doesn't get into like specifics in terms of, like what are the criteria otherwise than that. But you're right. My guess is that they're looking at, as their range increases, the number of cars sold in a particular zip code, trying to do all of that, how many Teslas are going up and down the 5 freeway, just probably decided why is there a 40 stall in Buttonwillow, why is there a 40 stall in Kettleman City, things like that, as they can expand. Like the Tesla in Harris Ranch, for instance, right? That supercharger is in the parking lot of the Harris Ranch restaurant. Be very hard to expand it in its current location. It would start to take up all the other, spots in the parking lot. So my guess is if that one were to grow, they'd have to build a second one somewhere off-site across the street. There's 1,000 acres in the other direction, not in that parking lot. But then you get into situations where now Tesla has to build the lighting infrastructure. They have to pave it. They have to do a lot of other things that so far they haven't really done when they're building.
And they typically choose places where you would want to stop. So be it like what do they call them? A milk stool?
Milk bar.
Milk bar.
Yeah, mate. You could have a milk bar, somebody have a whiz,
God.
get a Diet Coke. The Harris Ranch ones is a great one.
Yeah.
Because I've never stopped at Harris Ranch in my life. But when I got a Tesla, I stopped there. There's nowhere else to eat. So guess what? That restaurant, you just see the Tesla owners. They park and they all walk over to that restaurant.
If I think back to the last 20 steaks I've eaten, maybe in the last 2 or 3 years, half of them have been at Harris Ranch.
There you go. Let's move on.
And they're lovely people there.
They are. Let's move on to SpaceX and GPS. So we had a launch on the 23rd. Let me pull up a nice little picture here. We had a launch on the 23rd, and it was for GPS-3, which is a new satellite system which is significantly more accurate than the old satellite system.
Which was GPS-2.
Really? There's an article here.
And this one is called GPS 3.
Yeah,
the way they number these sequentially has been really quite
They didn't take a
advertising.
They didn't take a note out of the show and how we numbered the show. They just went 1, 2, 3. They went in order.
They went in order.
So the point is that this is going to be much more accurate. There's going to be a lot more of these launches up there, 3 times as accurate as the current GPS. And this is going to be really important for autonomous driving. It's going to be really important for your car to know exactly where it is. So this will help in that. And actually, you have some inside information about this because I actually have a relative that worked on this.
What?
And said, I can't tell you because I have to kill you because I work for the military, but the specs that are going to be released to the world are not the real specs. This is way, way better than you're being told.
Yeah, well, even in this article, they sort of allude to the fact that it has higher power antennas, which they say very specifically in this article will help them get through jamming, right? So it's military GPS. Apparently, if your adversary is trying to keep you from knowing where your vehicles are at any given time, they might try to jam your GPS. This can fight through the jamming. And I believe I read in this thing, like down to 20 centimeters is how
20 centimeters?
Is how basically
like
accurate
inches?
this thing is going to be.
Wow.
20
and
centimeters.
it's probably much better than that. According to a relative who can't be named, way better than that.
It's
for the military, because they'll have 2 versions. The military will be able to hone, woot,
Yeah.
whereas you and I, 20 centimeters.
So this was SpaceX's 21st and final launch of 2018, beating last year's 18 launches.
Beat by 3.
Look at the math.
That's good, man. Very, very,
Next
very
year,
quickly.
2019, what's
And
the
so
plan?
this, I don't know how many is on the manifest. It's a lot. If you can go and look on their website, they do have a manifest spot on their website. But I will say this one didn't land.
Right.
The specs, it had to get pushed up into higher orbit, so I think it took the weight that the legs would have taken, and they had extra fuel. Plus, I think it had to go farther out.
So you're saying they didn't put on the legs?
They did not put on the legs.
So less weight.
Less weight, so more fuel. They also, I think they had to push it farther out away from the coastline. No, from the coastline, which makes it much more difficult for them to get the barge out there to do the on Earth landings, on land landings. The base.
Or sometimes they don't land.
They don't land, right. So, but what I will say, I guess, if you're a fan of SpaceX and you love what they're doing, watch this with somebody like that hasn't watched a rocket take off. Even if they're not going to land it, watch it. Advocate for it. SpaceX is doing some very interesting things. They are really changing the perception of what rocket travel can be. We're going to start to see in the next year probably the crew capsules go up and be tested.
The crewed capsule, I should say the crew capsule without a crew is going up January 18th.
What?
From Cape Canaveral, correct?
It is, from Kennedy Space Center, Launch Complex 39A. So January 18th, that's going to be a big day.
Yeah.
But before that, we're getting one more Iridium satellite from Vandenberg.
What? When?
Yeah, they're sending up the 66th through the 75th satellites. There's redundancy in their program. That's going up on January 7th.
What time does it say?
It says at 7:53 Pacific
AM?
AM.
I love the night launchers.
I love the night launches.
Yeah.
See, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you might not know this, but we are just about 3 hours drive south of Vandenberg. And when they do these evening launches, and they, depending exactly which trajectory they go, we can have these unbelievable shows, even down here, like not even worth driving up there because it goes across the night sky, the plume. And if they do it just at dusk where it's still light up in the sky, but dark down here, you get the light shining behind it. It is like amazing.
I saw a video from Arizona where they showed it over the skyline. Even from Arizona, it looked amazing.
But it'll be a daytime launch. Watch the Iridium with someone who you haven't watched it. They're going to do a landing. It's fascinating to just see the look on people's faces when they cut to that camera shot of the light. So get on Skype, get on FaceTime, watch it with your grandma, watch it with your grandchildren, whatever that is. Just like
even your children.
Spend some time with your children, with whoever it is. Spend some time with somebody watching these. It's a great way to spend a few minutes with someone you love.
And there's even going to be a launch that's going to the moon.
To the moon,
To
Alice.
the moon! Oh, you got me. You got right there.
The honeymooners.
Nice.
Yeah. So the Sparrow, which is a autonomous moon lander, this is going to be like the first time the United States has gone back to the moon. It's a private company.
They haven't been the first time.
So this is a SpaceX launch to the moon?
That's what
But
Steph Curry said.
Yeah. So
And he would know. So he's a good basketball player.
SpaceX is the transporter for the Sparrow spacecraft. The Sparrow spacecraft will go to the moon.
When?
Alice.
On February 13th, a Wednesday. And they're going to do some exploration on the moon with this small device. It's about the size of a coffee table. I actually saw it when I went to Kennedy Space Center a little under a year ago to see the Falcon Heavy launch. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had just put out a sample of it. And it was, I forget all the things it was going to do. But
They've taken out a bunch of crackers, I know that.
to the cheese and the moon.
Because it's made of
Cheese, Wallace.
Wow.
Cheese.
Wow,
Is
this
it
is
just
terrible.
going to continue?
Let's move it out a long time. Let's keep things moving here. Let's talk about big trucks. This is from Electric.
This is
a
cool.
Dutch company that has an electric vehicle. And
3 electric vehicles is
DAF
actually.
is the company. This is Jumbo,
Are
which is
you
a supermarket.
daft?
Are you daft? This thing goes about 60, 80 miles. It does about 40 tons. And this is going to help this company reduce its carbon footprint from driving stuff around to the supermarket. They say by 50%. So these electric trucks and stuff, these are happening.
It looks
cute.
just like Bumblebee and like one of those Transformers with that yellow color.
So they have this truck. It's the CF. They have an LF, which has a range of 220 kilometers, but it's lighter duty, so it won't carry quite as much.
like-
And then there's a hybrid version, which also has a diesel engine, which I don't think is amazing. But again, if you need the longer term sort of situation, but this truck could be great. Again, it's proof of concept. Can you get a truck 62 miles of range that can carry a lot of stuff around a city? That's like LA, that's like Long Beach to a warehouse in like someplace else and on an electric truck.
Right.
Recharge it 30 minutes in to 80% charge. So again, like those use case scenarios fit trucks a lot better than, you know, our private vehicles, because we don't know what we're going to want to use our thing for, but you could buy a truck for a very specific route, financially viable.
All these jokes coming to mind that are so inappropriate.
So inappropriate.
I'm not going there.
Don't go there. But let's talk about media pick of the week. Now, turns out that Tom thinks this is the worst part of the show. So, because he thinks it's stupid and
like,
keeps saying
how many
it,
times has he
and
said
yet,
that?
he has 17 picks. Go on, Tom.
So the first
Hate
media
away.
pick is actually a media pick you have to go potentially to a museum to see. This is a Sally Mann photo exhibit. Sally Mann, 1,000 Crossings. It's her newest book. She's a photographer. Right now, currently, it's at the J. Paul Getty Museum through February 10th, but then it's going to be in Houston at the Museum of Fine Arts, and then it's going to be in Paris, and it's going to end in Atlanta January 12th, 2020. So it's going to be going around. This is an amazing
so it's
exhibition.
photographs.
It's black and white photographs, large format. She is a master craftsman of printing and wet collodial
I saw a picture of
process.
this on the
She got
Times.
into a lot of trouble at one point taking sort of very intimate photos of her family members. In the past, people don't like that sort of thing. This is not what this exhibit is about. This exhibit is about her pictures of. She's from Virginia, so it's about Civil War battlefields. It's about all kinds of things, but it's basically a retrospective. It's quite amazing, and she is a very, very good photographer. Then I watched the Voyager documentary. Have you guys seen this?
No.
So this is it's called The Farthest, and this is a story about the Voyager, the two Voyager missions to the farther outreaches of our galaxy, of our solar system, I guess.
The Voyager missions that have been going on for like 20, 30 years.
20, 30 years, right? So this technology, they had to lock the technology for the Voyagers in like 1972. And then they launched it like in 1977, and it's been giving us these photos that what we know of Saturn and Neptune and all of these other and Jupiter.
Do they go to that
from this?
Once was a planet Pluto?
They don't.
No.
It's stunning
not a
to me when
planet
I think
anymore.
about the Voyager and the fact that it is so far. And it was built in 72, and they're still sending pictures and stuff. But it's like, how is that possible? It's amazing.
And they basically say the technology they locked into that can fit in your pocket, and they're not talking about your phones. They're talking about your key fob. So, like, the technology in your key fob is basically, like, as good as any technology
why
on
didn't they
this.
send a key fob? Why did they have to send a multi-billion
So it's got
dollar?
cameras, and they have discovered so many things. Got intensive. Well, they're still getting data back from it. It's just going to go. This is the spacecraft that has the gold record on it.
Right.
Yes. And this is the spacecraft that in Star Trek, the original motion picture, comes back. It's V'ger. It's gone all through the planets and is asking the question, is this all there is? It's very philosophical.
But that's a really good. And then the last one is a book.
Oh, God.
It's a book by Rob Dunn. It's called The Wildlife in Our Bodies. And this is what I will tell you now. If you read this book, this will be the most favorite book you read this year.
Wow, that more than Sapiens?
Is this
More than Sapiens, because this talks about the flora in your gut, but it also talks about the evolution. It talks about why your appendix exists.
Oh,
it gets
really?
into
They came up with a solution for
There's
that
a theory,
question?
a very good theory
I
about
wanna
why
read
your
about that.
appendix exists.
It's a
But
poopy book.
it's all about interconnectivity, which is one of the most important things that we're kind of running into. And it's like, in this country we have
Like, why
we have
poop matters.
antelopes, right?
Yeah.
And the
Right.
reason that we have these antelopes and they're faster, twice as fast as any predator,
Yes.
it's because the predators are gone. So now that particular thing is ridiculous because we've killed all of the lions and the fast animals in this country. So we have this fast
What's
evolutionary.
that?
That's
The
an
audience,
African lion.
you're-
That's a different.
Oh, it's not a mountain lion.
No,
it's
it's
a
a
cousin of a mountain lion.
Right.
It's got a
But it's
question.
really all about this evolutionary interconnectivity done
Yes.
in such a fascinating
Oh,
way.
and I'm
You
going
guys will
to
love that.
put that up there, and if I don't like it more than Sapiens, I'm going to
I will give you $1 if you do not love that book.
The Wildlife in Our Bodies by Rob Dunn.
It's about poopy. I got to tell you about something I watched last night.
I saw
Netflix,
this.
The Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Oh my goodness! It's Ethan. It's a Coen Brothers.
It's the Coen Brothers, so you know that it's going to be weird and a little violent, and it is. I got to say, it is bizarre, profound, and the most masterful movie making. It is just fascinating. You might hate it, but it is interesting. I loved it.
It's beautiful. It's like 6 or 7 stories. Okay, let me ask you this. Of the stories, which one was your favorite? I have a favorite. Which one was your favorite?
I really like the first one, Buster Scruggs. It's just like, they're all good.
For me, it was the Oregon Trail one.
Okay. Well, let's not give it away. It's on Netflix. It's streaming now.
Yeah, the Coen brothers, Master Craftsman.
Good.
So I've been really interested in reading a book by Mark O'Connell called To Be a Machine.
Hello, I am a machine.
And he goes through this whole series of interviews and his very interesting sort of perspective on people who want to live forever, people who want to mesh with computers, people who want to be in computers. It's very interesting, and it gives you a great background as to how so much of what is driving this revolution or this push towards autonomizing our world and ourselves grows directly out of the computer revolution that occurred in the various valleys of Silicon.
So is this like so your thoughts live on even though your body doesn't? Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Yes, we're talking about people who are preserving their heads.
Right.
Because they're hoping that at some point in the future,
that ain't going to work.
$80,000. They have teams that will go out while you're dying. And it's good if you have cancer, as long as it's not in your brain, I guess. And then they will help to harvest your noggin and put it in liquid nitrogen. But then he talks to people like Ray Kurzweil, who is like 92 now and selling all his own supplements, trying to live long enough so that he can get uploaded directly into a machine and not have to go through the liquid nitrogen phase. It's just fascinating.
It sounds a lot like Homo Deus, which is by the same guy that did Sapiens, and his book Homo Deus is about a lot of this similar stuff. This is where we're headed, genetics, uploading of consciousness. It's all very interesting.
It's interesting to sit on I feel like I'm sitting on the edge of a bit of a precipice, right? I'm not going to fall off into the future because it's not quite here yet, but watching all that's happening at the edge, some of it feeling very precarious, very stretched out and almost crazy. But at the same time, I have seen so many things come to pass that I would not have expected.
But I do wonder, like, does it freeze the people in the current state of their brain right then, or is their brain allowed to continue? Because again, I listened to this book recently, and it's Sally Mann's memoir. I didn't bring it up, but anyways, so she's talking about
the picture lady.
The same photographer, and she does a memoir, but she talks at the end about death and all, when you die, like, so when you die, all of the knowledge and information about building whatever knowledge you have, it goes away, right? So like
it's a
all
waste.
Of that information is gone. If that information could live on, could that help to advance us much farther?
Oh yeah.
And then would that the sort of the combined knowledge of everybody who, like, so now we could have, for instance, a guy like Da Vinci's mind today, but would he have been able to learn all of the new technologies and have his sort of genius grow even more full but never leave us?
Right. I mean, it's a fascinating question of how much resource we lose every minute of every day when people who are very wise, and I have known scores and scores and scores of very wise people who die, and they take with them all this information and all this experience and all of this gut intuition. And I'm thinking, what a complete waste of energy.
We're talking languages. We're talking like indigenous tribe medicine, shaman, all kinds of knowledge that's just gone from the planet.
You're making me sad.
But then if they can fix this, then we could fix it.
Talking why we shouldn't die.
This could. I mean, I don't want to live forever because I can't afford the long-term care.
You need to save for a million years of healthcare.
But if I was on if you were
in my phone, if we had 55 people in my phone, we
sounds like an episode of Black Mirror to me.
Yeah, it does.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's get some letters from the patrons. First of all, Joel Sapp, fan of the show. President Sapp. We know him as.
So Joel says, when I listen to the podcast, I always think that Tom and Robert don't like each other. And that could not be farther from the truth. I think there may have been a time where we didn't, but we definitely do now.
They've grown on each other like fungus.
But his real question is, why is Mel sitting
on a stool?
Joel,
on a stool.
He's not. He's standing.
Oh, he's given up.
I've given up the thing because it was really hard, so I'm back to my normal.
I'm going to tweet a picture of the things.
Yet perturbing.
I have quite hairy toes, but I can be trusted with very important objects if they need to be thrown into fires, for example.
The next letter comes from Rich Grindling.
Let me say it.
Okay.
Grindling?
I don't think it's Grindling. I know there's an E in there. Okay, I think it's Grindling. For the record, over a 4-week road trip from Kentucky to the national parks out west, whatever that means, the national park, they couldn't have named
There's
one
a bunch
of them.
of them.
Yeah, that's true. 6,300 miles, 34 supercharging stations.
What?
Everything went well. Usually, they were the only ones at the supercharging station. So what you need to do is take a trip from here through the national parks, through Kentucky. You won't have any issues at all. The busiest one had 3 cars out of 6 unit.
50% occupied.
Thanks, Rich.
Yeah.
That's great.
Hope you enjoyed your
that's not
time.
California. Colin Ross said, look, great show. Love the studio format. Listened to half of the show in the car without looking at your ugly mugs. And then when I got home, I watched the video and I enjoyed it even more, which I don't believe. And he says, great media picks. I'm halfway through Red Moon and I'm buying Sapiens and Homo Deus right now.
And I say to you, Colin, what about my media picks?
Nobody cares. Brian Anderson, we call him
Mr.
Anderson likes the look of the studio. Thank you very much. Patrick Watkins needs some charging advice, and he says, mates, I live in an apartment. I've only got 112 volt charging. Supercharger is not nearby. So here's a couple of questions for you. One, will supercharging a lot degrade my battery? So the short summary is probably not. Tesla says you shouldn't supercharge all the time, but the data that we have, this aggregated data from all people, and they tell how they charge their cars, and Ben Sullins on the Teslanomics has done this a couple of times.
And I talked to Rahul from
Tesloop. Basically shows that the increase in degradation over just charging at home is really minimal at most.
Especially if you don't fully charge, right? Just set it for 80%. Do not fully charge or you may get some additional degradation. But if you're... so basically he's saying for the next 2 years, I'm really only going to have access to either really slow charging or really supercharging. Don't worry about it. He's going to drive 50 to 150 miles a day a couple of times. So... I think you're probably going to be fine. Robert does the same thing.
I keep it at 90%.
But you're definitely not going to get much out of the 110 volt.
Well, you will in a Model 3. I have the Model 3 at home I charge from my 110 volt. And you can get about 4 to 5 miles of range per hour of charge. So if you plug it in at 8 o'clock and then pull it out at 6, that's 10 hours. That's about 40, 50 miles. So for many days, that might be enough.
Yeah, I call that
that's true.
Despacio.
Yeah.
Not Despacito.
Despacito. Tom Phillips.
Hi, Tom.
He said that Tesla must be listening to the show because he went to the Buellton Supercharger, the one that I was complaining about, where the speeds were terrible and also were iced. And he said, I got 500 miles per hour of charging on the Model 3. That's coincidence?
So lovely.
I think not. He also said he loved the podcast, so he's probably a lie.
Don't call people who take the time to write us letters liars.
And if we pull this picture up here again on the computer.
But that was, yes.
This is that picture again of the Kettleman Supercharger full. Look at all of those Teslas.
And what I love about this picture, it's full, but nobody parked in that handicap spot even though it was full. Those people had respect. There were 9 people waiting, and they did not pull into the handicap.
And this just here, by the way, is actually a destination charger. It's an AC charger. Right. So
for the desperate.
And around the corner is a Denny's, so you could have just plugged in there and got yourself 60 miles while you had moons over Miami.
Oh, God.
We will not talk to Mel.
We won't talk to Mel about nutrition. I wanted to give thanks to a few folks. There was Kurt Helen, who's in Belgium. Not Holland,
which is,
or Norway, or Danish.
It's just never ending.
It doesn't. But I love that. That's such a great story.
It's true.
Yeah. Because there's there's a part of Holland. No, there's a part of Netherlands that New Zealand is named after.
New Holland.
Yeah.
No, it's called Zealand.
The Z, Zealand.
New Holland was Australia. My bad. That was the original name of Australia. New Holland.
There you go. And so Wanted to thank Kurt, Jason, Galaranyu, Yao Ming, Chance Downs, Eugene, Skylar, Benjamin, Matthew, and Ragita all bought with my code. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because the code has been extended.
What?
Extended again.
The referral program has been changed, extended, and reanimated, and it's never going away completely.
I don't know. I wonder.
It's never going away.
Everybody was getting really antsy because there was a lot of folks who were approaching 50 referrals, 55. 55 referrals you get.
Free Roadster.
At Roadster, exactly.
Well, you get a $60,000
Who of us in this show have any referrals left to go to get to the Roadster?
I do.
Exactly.
I'm at 4%. I wouldn't mind. But see, the problem is we need to get to 2 Roadsters, which is one of the reasons we're moving to YouTube, is because we'll get if we get 110, then we can sell one of the Roadsters to basically pay the taxes on the other Roadsters.
We Are Talking Roadsters. Yeah. And so did you realize that the Boring Company at that event, anybody who owned an original Roadster got invited?
Oh.
That's a
nice.
fact.
Did they get in the hole?
Did they get a ride? No.
I don't know.
Did they get locked out of the
I know
bar
many
for
of them
yes.
got stuck with me in the line with the doohickeys. I forgot what they're called. And so I wanted to say that it's extended until March 11th. And there's a new portion to this in that you get 6 months of free supercharging with the code Robert. I forgot my code. Oh, 317 Robert 3177. You get 6 months of free supercharging. But if you buy the car without taking a test drive, so basically if you've already taken a test drive, use your significant other's name or your child's name to buy the car. But if you buy the car without a test drive, they'll give you 3 additional months.
Such a weird thing.
Supercharging
Such
for free.
Thing.
And that's because they don't have to spend money showing you the car in the store and taking you for a test drive. It's all money.
Lame.
I didn't think it up. But you can get 9 months of supercharging if you don't go, and they'll give you your money back if you don't like the car. I think you've got
3 days.
3 days. So you can drive the car for 3 days, take it on a trip across America, and show up somewhere else and say,
trip.
I don't want the car, and turn it back in. And then they updated what you get for the referrals if you're a person giving out your code. Bottom line, use
the code.
Laney 9300. LAINI 9300.
You were giving it up the last show. You were saying, just give it to Robert.
But now, Robert, your code is
3177.
Robert 3177.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm exhausted as always.
Why?
We talked for a lot of times.
We didn't
about a lot
talk
of
for
things.
that long.
How long? What time is it?
I hope everybody has a good New Year.
Close to 2 hours.
And Tesla's got a lot of stuff
We didn't
going
get to
on
go
in
into this
2019.
box.
Oh, let's go into the box. Let's see what's in the box.
So we're about to end the show, and now we're going to go into a box.
I got another.
Whoa.
What's in the box?
I got a box from the Boring Company.
You did?
It's going to be
interesting.
The Boring Company.
So it's got a red thing on the side of it that looks like danger, Will Robinson, danger. There were people blowing off the Boring... It's a Boring fire extinguisher.
Stored pressure extinguisher.
Did you buy that, or did that come with the
Boring Company? I bought it. I bought it with my supercharger. I bought it with my flamethrower.
But it came.
And now I have an official. Shall I pull the pin?
No.
Okay. So there it is. The Boring Company. First time
that thing's
I've
probably
ever
worth
seen
like
it.
$8,000.
I think it was $30. But it's obviously,
it's pretty nice.
There's probably people who pay $30 just for the sticker.
I'd like to have that in my truck if you don't
Would you?
Yes, I would. That's lovely. That would be lovely.
What if you put the flamethrower on the gun rack in your truck?
I don't have a gun rack in my truck, but the flamethrower would be nice on my truck. I'm not gonna be like, you guys ready to start the campfire?
We have video of us using that device. We should probably post that.
That we shouldn't post it during the California fires, and a lot of people lost their houses.
But
and it just
everybody's
seemed like
forgotten
silly.
about that by now.
Well, they were blowing them off at the Boring Company event. You could hold one in your hand.
Just seems like a bad idea. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Tom, it's Robert, it's Mel. The show is over. We've jumped the shark. I'm going to try and hit the camera.
My God, he took his hat off. He never does this.
Patrons, we'll have another full video show for you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Herbert. Ow!
Cool. Oh, you got close.
I'm done.
Adios. Good to see you, Tom.
Later, Tesla.